Was Nelson Mandela a terrorist or a leader? A provocative question indeed, challenging our perception of one of history's most iconic figures. His legacy is a tapestry of struggle, sacrifice, and leadership. Join us as we delve into the life and times of Nelson Mandela, exploring this complex question. Nelson Mandela, born in 1918, grew up in a South Africa dominated by the policies of racial segregation and white supremacy. This was a world where the color of one's skin dictated one's destiny, where dreams were often crushed under the weight of harsh realities. In the heart of this tumultuous landscape, a leader was silently taking shape. Born Rolihlahla Mandela, in the small village of Mvezo, he was a member of the Thembu royal family. His father, a local tribal chief, named him Rolihlahla, which in the Xhosa language means pulling the branch of a tree, or colloquially, troublemaker. A prophetic name indeed for a man destined to uproot the entrenched system of apartheid. Mandela's early life was deeply influenced by his tribal roots. The stories of his ancestors' valor and the African oral tradition shaped his worldview. The seeds of his fight against oppression were sown in these formative years, as he experienced firsthand the harsh realities of apartheid. His father's early demise meant that young Mandela was taken under the wing of the Thembu regent, Yongintaba Dalindyebo. This was a turning point in Mandela's life. He was given access to the best education available to a black child in South Africa at the time. But with this education came the understanding of the stark racial inequalities that pervaded South African society. This realization led Mandela to pursue a career in law. He was one of the few black students at the University of Witwatersrand, a bastion of white privilege. His experiences here further solidified his resolve to fight against racial segregation. As a lawyer, Mandela dedicated his career to providing legal counsel to black South Africans, who were often subjected to unfair trials and harsh sentences. But the law courts were not the only battleground for Mandela. His activism extended beyond the courtroom. He was a founding member of the African National Congress Youth League, an organization that played a pivotal role in the struggle against apartheid. His early experiences set the stage for a life of political activism that would shake the world. Mandela's early life was a crucible that forged a leader who would change the course of history, not just for South Africa, but for the world. His journey from a tribal village to the global stage is a testament to his indomitable spirit and unwavering commitment to justice. By 1961, Mandela realized peaceful protests were not enough. The winds of change were sweeping across South Africa, but the apartheid regime continued to hold its iron grip on power. Mandela, a man with a vision of a free and equal South Africa, had to make a pivotal decision. The non-violent methods he had championed seemed to be falling on deaf ears. The government's response was not dialogue or reform, but violence and suppression. The peaceful protests were met with bullets and batons, the pleas for justice with jail cells. Mandela, like many leaders facing oppressive regimes, was forced to consider a different path. This path led to the formation of Umkhonto we Sizwe, also known as MK, the armed wing of the African National Congress. The aim of MK was not to wage a war of destruction, but to apply pressure on the government, to show that the oppressed had the means to fight back if necessary. Umkhonto we Sizwe launched its first acts of sabotage against the government's infrastructure in December 1961. The targets were carefully chosen. The intention was to disrupt and demoralize the apartheid regime, but not to cause loss of life. However, the government's response was swift and brutal. The crackdown led to the Rivonia trial, named after the suburb of Johannesburg where the MK's leaders were arrested. Mandela was among the accused. The charges were serious, including sabotage and planning a foreign invasion of South Africa. The Rivonia trial was a turning point. Mandela used the trial not just to defend himself but to put the apartheid regime itself on trial. His speech from the dock became a rallying cry for those seeking freedom and justice, not just in South Africa, but around the world. But Mandela's decision to turn to armed resistance was controversial. It blurred the lines between freedom fighter and insurgent, between leader and terrorist. It was a decision that would have far-reaching consequences. Mandela's actions during this period would lead some to label him a terrorist. But as we'll see, the story is far from simple, and Mandela's journey from armed resistance to peaceful reconciliation is one of the most remarkable in history. Imprisoned for 27 years, Mandela became a symbol of resistance. The iron bars of his cell did not confine his spirit, nor did they stifle his voice. In fact, they amplified it, turning Mandela into an enduring emblem of defiance against apartheid. His time in prison was far from a period of inactivity. Mandela's political beliefs evolved, deepened even, as he faced the harsh reality of life behind bars. He was initially incarcerated at Robben Island, a place notorious for its brutal conditions. Yet it was here, amidst the hardship, that Mandela began to see the power of unity, of standing together against a common enemy. In the solitude of his cell, Mandela had time to reflect on the complexities of the struggle against apartheid. His thoughts turned to reconciliation, to the idea that only through understanding and forgiveness could a new South Africa arise from the ashes of the old. He began to envision a nation where all its citizens, black and white alike, could live in harmony. Yet, while Mandela was changing within the confines of his cell, so too was the world outside. His imprisonment became a rallying point for the anti-apartheid movement. His name was chanted in protests, his face emblazoned on banners. The world was watching, and the world was demanding change. Even though Mandela was physically absent from the front lines, he continued to exert significant influence on the struggle against apartheid. His letters from prison, smuggled out and distributed among the people, were a beacon of hope in dark times. They served as a reminder of the cause they were fighting for, and of the man who had sacrificed his freedom for their future. Mandela's years in prison were also a testament to his indomitable spirit. Despite the harsh conditions, the isolation, and the constant threat of further punishment, Mandela did not break. Instead, he emerged stronger, more determined, and more committed to his cause. While in prison, Mandela's reputation as a leader grew. He was no longer just a man. He had become an idea, a symbol of resistance, and a beacon of hope for a nation yearning for freedom. Released from prison in 1990, Mandela dedicated himself to reconciliation. Emerging from the shadows of his 27-year incarceration, not with bitterness or vengeance but with a vision of peace and unity, Mandela embarked on a journey to dismantle the very system that had imprisoned him: apartheid. The year was 1994. South Africa held its first free elections, a monumental event that marked the end of an oppressive era and the dawn of democracy. The people spoke, and their voice echoed through the ballot boxes, electing Mandela as the first black president of South Africa. His victory was not just a personal triumph, but a victory for all South Africans, and a beacon of hope for oppressed peoples worldwide. Yet the road ahead was not without its challenges. Apartheid might have ended on paper, but its scars ran deep within the fabric of the nation. The country was divided, its people polarized. But Mandela, the peacemaker, knew that the strength of South Africa lay in its diversity. He tirelessly worked to unify the divided country, promoting forgiveness and reconciliation. He established the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, a crucial step towards healing the nation's wounds. The commission aimed to uncover the truth about human rights abuses during apartheid, but not to seek revenge. Instead, it offered a platform for victims and perpetrators to confront their past, fostering an environment of understanding and forgiveness. Mandela, ever the visionary, also understood the power of symbolism in uniting the country. He used the 1995 Rugby World Cup, a sport predominantly followed by white South Africans, to bring the nation together. His decision to don the Springbok jersey, a symbol of Afrikaner pride, during the final match, is an enduring image of his commitment to reconciliation. Mandela's presidency was seen by many as a triumph of leadership and reconciliation. His legacy is not just about ending apartheid or becoming president. It's about his unwavering commitment to unity, his ability to forgive, and his tireless efforts to heal a nation. It's about a leader who emerged from the depths of adversity and led his people towards a brighter, more inclusive future. So, was Mandela a terrorist or a leader? This question poses a paradox that has long been the subject of heated debates. On one hand, we have the view of Mandela as a terrorist. This perspective is largely rooted in his early years of activism, during which he led a turn towards armed resistance. Mandela was, after all, a key figure in the formation of Umkhonto we Sizwe, the armed wing of the African National Congress. This group carried out a series of bombings across South Africa, actions that inevitably led to civilian casualties. It was these actions that led to Mandela's imprisonment and his classification as a terrorist by some nations, a label that would follow him for decades. On the other hand, we have the view of Mandela as a leader, a perspective supported by his later life and his tireless efforts to dismantle the apartheid system. After his release from prison, Mandela worked relentlessly to heal a divided nation. He led negotiations for a multiracial democracy, becoming South Africa's first black president and a global symbol of resilience and reconciliation. He championed the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, an initiative aimed at addressing the human rights abuses of the apartheid era, showing his commitment to justice and healing. It's clear that Mandela's life was a complex tapestry of actions and intentions. Some see a man who resorted to violence in the face of oppressive injustice, while others see a leader who dedicated his life to the pursuit of equality and unity. So, was Mandela a terrorist or a leader? The answer may not be as black and white as one might think. It's a question that invites us to reflect on the complexities of human nature, the consequences of systemic oppression, and the lengths to which one might go to fight for freedom. The answer may depend on one's perspective. Nelson Mandela's legacy is undeniably complex. A statement as true as the sun's rise. Mandela's life and actions have left a lasting impact, weaving a tapestry that continues to influence South Africa and the world. Mandela's decision to resort to armed resistance marked a pivotal juncture in his life, and indeed, in the fight against apartheid. While some saw this as a necessary step towards liberation, others viewed it as an act of terrorism. This dichotomy of perception extends into his prison years, where he was considered a political prisoner by some, and a criminal by others. Yet, it is in the crucible of adversity that character is often forged. The 27 years Mandela spent in prison did not break him but rather strengthened his resolve. His release in 1990 marked not just the end of his imprisonment but the beginning of a new chapter in South Africa's history. As the first democratically elected president of South Africa, Mandela's focus was on reconciliation and unity. He worked tirelessly to bridge the racial divide that had so long plagued the nation. This period of his leadership is often hailed as his greatest contribution, earning him the Nobel Peace Prize in 1993. Yet, it also brought to light the challenges of governance, with criticisms leveled at his handling of economic issues and the HIV/AIDS crisis. In considering Mandela's impact, it is important to remember that he was a man of his time. His actions were shaped by the circumstances of his era, and his decisions were guided by what he believed to be the best course of action in the face of systemic oppression. No single narrative can fully encompass the complexity of Mandela's legacy. The same man who once resorted to violence in the fight against injustice, later championed reconciliation and peace. The leader who stood against a system of racial segregation also faced criticisms for his handling of certain issues during his presidency. In the end, was Mandela a terrorist or a leader? This question is not for us to answer definitively. It is a question that invites reflection, debate, and a deeper understanding of the complexities of history. For all his faults and virtues, Mandela's influence extends far beyond the borders of South Africa. His life serves as a testament to the power of resilience, the pursuit of justice, and the potential for change. It is a story that continues to inspire and challenge us, reminding us of the complexities of human nature and the enduring struggle for equality. Regardless of how one views him, Nelson Mandela's impact on South Africa and the world is undeniable. What do you think? Was Mandela a terrorist or a leader? As you ponder this question, remember that history is not simply black and white but rather a spectrum of grays. And within these grays we find the richness, the complexity, and the beauty of our shared human story.